Hey everyone, Kyle Dwyer here with Asset Hero Studios on behalf of Dynamite Inspections and Marketing. So this is the Dynamite Inspections and Marketing podcast. Today we're going to talk about why inspections, periodic inspections, or any type of inspection when it comes to an investment property, why are they so important? I think that's something that people take for granted a lot. The idea of it sounds great when it comes to an investor. It's like, oh yeah, we need to make sure that myself, if I'm self-managing or, if I hire a property manager or whatever, we do periodic inspections of the property. For one, make sure the tenants aren't damaging the property or neglecting it in any form and upholding the lease terms that they agree to, or a preventative maintenance, right? So, that's the simple answer really, but what I mean by it gets taken for granted is they simply just don't happen. So, I'm an investor myself, and I buy properties all the time that are managed from another management company, and I can tell you it is extremely rare that a management company, at least here in Brazos County, where the manager actually does legitimate inspections. So they may count they may be showing the property to a prospective tenant, and they count that as their inspection because they're there, right? But where's the documentation? Right, so there's no legitimacy behind it. There's no purpose. There's no forward thinking. Being productive, being preventative, right? Being proactive, not being reactive, right? So many times I see it over and over. Even landlords, it's more so on landlords because they just I don't know. It's just, oh God, that feeling of, I don't really want to do another inspection, or I don't want to do an inspection. I don't want to bother the tenants. The tenants pay on time every month. It's fine, right? They're doing good. The tenants will tell me if there's a maintenance issue, right? I don't know if it's just they don't want to do it. The landlord may not be local, right? And from a property management standpoint, it's just pure laziness. So, I'm not trying to call anyone out. But I guess it's more than just laziness. Most management companies, unfortunately, do not see their true worth, right? They don't know their true value. They're just ignorant to it. And so, for example, they'll charge a singular management fee, a single percentage for all services. It's all encompassing, right? Well, that's not reasonable from a business standpoint. Like that, charging 8 to 10% in rent collection is not enough funds, to then pay someone, either outsource or hire someone internally to go do inspections on a regular basis. It's just not, there's no financial benefit there. You would actually be spending more money. So the management company literally can't do it. So they can't provide the service that they promise, right? So they can't, they'll say, oh yeah, we'll do an inspection whenever you want. So instead, what they do is just not do them, or do them while they're doing something else, right? They don't necessarily document anything. They're just there taking a quick look around. Oh yeah, everything looks good. But there's no agenda. They're not looking for specific things. They're just, oh, I did a showing there. I was there last week. It's fine. Or when one of the clients reaches out and says, hey, aren't you supposed to be doing inspections? They'll be like, oh yeah, it's on the schedule for this week. So they'll bust out a 6-page piece of paper and write check marks. Oh yeah, look, everything looks good. So it's not, they just can't, because they don't see their worth, they don't see their value, and therefore cannot afford to pay someone, again, internally or externally, to accomplish that. So it just doesn't happen. And the results are extremely damaging to the landlord, whether it's landlord induced or property manager induced. So maybe not right away, right? Especially if you buy like a turnkey property. But what ends up happening is over time, things just stop happening. Things don't, having a proactive approach to rental investment properties rather than a reactive approach will save you thousands over the course of years. Like I promise, when you do a inspection and you're looking for specific things, preventative maintenance. Let's say you notice that in one of your inspections that the dryer vent is very clogged, and it's not the dryer's not heating, right? So you see, and there's just lint everywhere. Well, maybe that's a fire hazard, right? So maybe taking a proactive approach, cleaning that ducting may cost $100 or $200 depending on the vendor, but that is significantly cheaper than if that place caught fire, burned down the house, and you having to pay thousands in deductibles and potentially lawsuits from the tenants. I mean, just think about stuff like that, right? So that's going to save you thousands. That's just one example. But having that proactive approach, also state and local laws, Texas Property Code, there are requirements that are required, that you have to have on the properties as an investment property. Peepholes, privacy locks, window locks, smoke alarms. It just goes on and on and on. You got to make sure that you have those things in place and properly to lower the overall liability as the landlord. So, I can't tell you how many times I've been sued for an attempted Texas Property Code violation. Like, it's just, people are bad, right? So, I mean, it's not trying to be negative, but people will try to take advantage of you if they have the opportunity, and you got to lower that liability. You can't prevent it. There's always going to be someone, right? That's just the type of business you're in, right? As a landlord, people will come after you. It's not a matter of if, it's when. You got to be prepared for those things. So if you do the proper steps and you take the proper precautions and have the proper documentation, you will be very well more protected. So that's looking at tenant negligence. That's, having different, that's why at Dynamite we have different focuses, right? Each, we have 4 periodic inspections a year that we do. Each quarter of year we have a focus, right? Different focus. So we do exterior, and landscaping on one focus. We have ducting, and that includes air ducts and dryer ducting, air quality, HVAC, right? We have a general inspection. We have a plumbing and winterizing inspection, because, like, speaking of winterizing, right before the freezes come, we're in Texas, but there's still some hard freezes that we get a few times a year. I mean, think about if you don't winterize the property, or the tenants don't winterize the property. Think of the mass amount of floods that you can get from busted pipes, So preventative maintenance. Yes, it costs a little up front, but you're going to save thousands because of it. So that's the purpose of the inspection when it comes to preventative maintenance. Tenant negligence is another thing, right? So now, in the ideal and perfect world, the tenants aren't negligent and they treat the property as if it was their own. But the reality of it, that doesn't happen with every tenant. So checking on that is also important, because and also preventative, because think about it this way. Let's say mid-lease you do a periodic inspection and you notice that there's a huge hole in the wall, right? So obviously the tenant's made that, and that needs to be fixed. So if you didn't do that inspection, you wouldn't have known about it until after they moved out, okay? So that's that much more money that's going to be deducted from their security deposit, right? But what happens when there's a lot more damages that exceed the deposit, right? We don't want that. What we want is to fix it in the moment. So if we find a huge hole in the wall, you as the landlord or the property manager can react and get that fixed right then and there, and put that on the tenant's ledger to be paid with the next month's rent, or in 2 weeks, or whatever works best for you. That way you're not even dipping into the deposit, right? So you're holding the tenants accountable for negligence, if there's negligence, right? Keep in mind, I'm not saying that tenants are bad. No, not all tenants are equal, just like all landlords are not equal, right? So having that mindset, though, that preventative maintenance, I got to take care of this investment. You must invest in your investment, right? So that goes for marketing as well, but we'll talk about that in another video. But inspections are extremely important. I can't tell you how many times where there is a legal issue that I've run into, and it is deferred because of the documentation I have, right? It's not just about the focuses that you have of each inspection, it's about the documented condition of the property overall. So when a tenant moves out and they completely destroyed the property, but they're claiming that they didn't, you have an entire year's worth of documented proof how they treated the property as the lease progressed, right? They move in. 3 months later, you're doing an inspection, video documentation. Another 3 months, you're doing this. And each 3 months, you can see how the property changes and how the condition of it is going down if a tenant ends up doing that. So, and then at the very end, you have the final make-ready inspection that shows the result, right? So, can't tell you how many times where we had a property that I own that we've did a full repaint on, right? And a tenant's moved in and they weren't there but 11 and a half months because they're college students or, you know, whatever. And they move out and it looks like they've been living there for 10 years on the walls. So, but they're, you know, they would claim normal wear and tear. That's normal wear and tear, but it's not, right? So, I mean, I live in a house for 2 or 3 years and move out and the walls don't look anything like that, right? So, and I have 3 kids. So it's, that documentation helps support your claims if you need it, right? It's there, it's a insurance policy. Think about it that way, right? So it's there to protect you. It's also there to protect the tenants, right? So it goes both ways, right? If you have a landlord that is unreasonable and his expectations are unreasonable, right? You have the tenants also have that documentation to support them and protect them from unreasonable landlords, right? So as the property manager's job is to be the middleman and keep the tenants and the owners from being unreasonable on either side, right? They are in a contract. The contract is between the landlord and the tenant. The property manager's job is to abide or to enforce those terms. With inspections just helps that all around. Like there's almost no argument here, right? So it's the documented proof. It's the documentation that both the tenants and the owners need. It's extremely important. I can't stress that enough. It's one of the top priorities for me as an investor myself to have documented proof of the condition at all times. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light on why inspections themselves are so important. You know, it's not just about the 4 periodic inspections that Dynamite does, right? We do make-ready inspections. So that's the inspection, the very detailed, most likely lengthy inspection of the property after the tenants move out. We have a move-in inspection, meaning, you know, after you, the landlord or the property manager, does the make-ready, the turnover, the getting the property move-in condition for the incoming tenant. We do a move-in inspection to, again, document the property right before that tenant moves in. That's extremely important, right? That, again, more protection. And then we also have a move-in orientation video for tenants, right? So let's say the tenant moves in and they still, even despite all of this, they still find some issues, which is fine. Everyone's human, right? There's things that are missed, and that's what the move-in orientation is for, to help protect the tenant, right? In place of an inventory condition form, which to me, very primitive, right? Inventory condition forms are just not sufficient, right? So any tenant that wants to take advantage can just write anything that they want on there, right? And it's supposed to be accepted, right? That's not fair to the landlord, but it's also not fair to the tenant because most tenants are not detailed enough. They'll say dirty. Well, what does that mean, right? The mark on wall. Well, which wall, right? Which wall are you referring to? Which mark? Because if there's a little tiny hole in the bottom right corner of the wall, but then you do a big gash on the wall right before you move out, that's still a mark. So you can see how the inventory condition form is not very protective for the landlord or the tenant. So the move-in orientation is really important for tenants and landlords. So surprise inspections, right? If you as a landlord are under the impression that a tenant is in default, meaning they have a pool that they're not supposed, they put up a pool, like an HOA violation or unauthorized pets, unauthorized tenants, whatever. A surprise inspection is also available, right? So all of which is video documented, right? That's the key. The video is so much more modern than photos and written documentation. That's just primitive thinking. You got to think modern. what's today's and age? What are we doing to help protect everyone involved with this transaction? So anyway, again, if you have questions, reach out to us. Go to our website. It's inspectionsbcs.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. Till next time, thanks guys.